Hi and welcome! In this tutorial, we are going to create a star rating system for your game. It will display the current rating using full and half stars and show a hover overlay so that the player can preview their selection before committing to their choice. This system consists of 4 parts, and a simple enum will make sure we can use it to either show full stars or also allow for half stars. The star class, which holds references to the star and indicator sprites for empty, half and full states. The star click receiver, which detects click on each half of the star. The star hover receiver, which detects hover events. And lastly, the star rating, which ties everything together and manages the current rating value. And an optional 5th part, which will give some click feedback. I am using the squash and stretch script I explained in a previous tutorial for this. It is not required to continue with this tutorial though. To follow along, you will need 5 graphics: an empty star, a half-filled star, and a filled star, and also at least a halfway filled and filled indicator for where the player hovers. If you are lacking icons, you can work with the 4 star icons you can find on fonts.google.com's icon tab. Alright, let's start with an empty canvas and create a new child object on it. Call it star rating. This is going to be the container for all the stars and will later have the main star rating script attached to it. Create a new child object to it and call it star. This will be the single star in the array. Create another empty child object to it and call it star container. This will hold the images. Set its rect transform to stretch in both directions by holding Shift and Alt and clicking on the down right entry in the preset menu. Also attach a layout element to this container and check Ignore Layout. This will make sure our star will always be located in the center and ignore the horizontal layout we are going to attach in just a moment. This again will get 2 more image child objects: star, which displays the chosen star rating, and indicator, which only shows when the player hovers over any of the stars. If your chosen graphic bumps right into the edge of the star container, give it a bit of a margin all around. I'll show later why that is important. Next, the star will need 2 more child objects: left and right. Both are images, but the color's alpha value is set to 0. This will make sure that we get to click on either side of the star to change the rating by half values. Back to the main star object, attach a horizontal layout group. This time we don't want to have any manual control over the location and size of the left and right side, so all 4 boxes get ticked. I explain in my deep dive into the layout system why I don't count the middle entries here. This is all we require for the star. Drag it into your project folder to turn it into a prefab. On your star rating container, add a horizontal layout group and uncheck everything. This really just needs to spread out child objects. Make sure to not increase the spacing here. This is going back to why I mentioned to add a bit of margin around your stars. Once the system is done, the left and right sides notify the system over which part your player is hovering. Duplicate the initial star until you get 5 stars. As you can see, all of them bump right into each other at the edges, meaning there is a consecutive area of player hovers over star system. By giving them no space in between, it will make sure there won't be any breaks and resets when the player moves the mouse from one star to the next. Alright, this is already the end of the setup. Let's switch over to writing some code, and we are going to start with the click and hover functionality first, building the whole system basically backwards. StarClick Receiver is a script that will handle what happens when either the left or right side of the star gets clicked. It does not have anything to show on the inspector, since everything will be set up through code by the star itself. It has 3 private values: the star's index number, which is the index of it in the group of stars inside the container, a star side, which will handle if it is the left or right side of the star, and a method to call when the side this script sits on is clicked, informing whoever listens to it about its index value and which side of the star it is set to. This is possible by using the iPointer click handler and its respective method. I try to keep my enums either in their own classes or as part of the manager script. This is what this one looks like. During my first iteration of the system, I worked with the bool instead, but it made the code a bit tedious to read at some point. Star hover receiver looks almost identical, at least to a degree. It has the same private values at the top and the same kind of initialize method, although the method it takes is on hover instead of on click. Instead of iPointerClick handler, we will use iPointerEnter and exit interfaces instead. Both invoke the onHover method, although when the cursor exits, it will do so with a -1 value. This just means that this should be treated as empty. Next, create a new script and call it star. The star will have quite a lot of fields at the top, but it looks like more work than it actually is. We start with the rating setup. That's for the actual stars that show how the player rated whatever they are supposed to rate. It gets references to the left and right half, plus a reference to the star's image and the 3 state images it can be in: filled, half-filled, and empty. The indicator setup is almost the same. It just deals with hover receivers and indicator images and sprites. This star will be set up with all required functionality from the upcoming star rating manager. For this, add the initialize method. It takes an index, a method to call when it was clicked, and another method for when it is hovered over. The index is the number it refers to for the rating. The star has 2 more methods, one for displaying the rating and one to display the hover interaction. These are almost identical again. They default to the empty sprite of their kind and pick a different one in case they are half-filled or completely filled. Both methods are going to be called from the manager. Star display state is another enum, this one containing entries for full, half, and empty. We'll finish the system with a star rating script. It starts by listing the 3 kinds of enums I work with in this system. Value type is new and will control if we allow for half values or if we want to work with full numbers. Again, value types could be a bool, but this makes it more pleasing to read in the inspector. The actual star rating starts with an array for the stars and the types of values we want to work with. It also offers an event for other systems to subscribe to. If you want to show it on your inspector, use an Unity event. You can also replace it with a simple action if you prefer working completely code-based. It keeps track of the current rating, and if any outside system requires access to it, offers it. Resets fills out the array with all the stars it can find inside the container. Start goes over each star entry, assigns the iteration number to a dedicated index value, and if you don't do this, you will get surprising results you most likely don't want to have, and calls the initialize method of the respective star, handing it the index number, a method to call when clicked, and a method to call when hovered over. Once that is done, it sets the rating to 0. If you have some kind of save system, you will be able to use the public setRating method to set it to whatever has been saved, but I won't cover saving and loading here. SetRating makes sure we get a value between 0 and the maximum amount of stars in the array, refreshes the visuals of the star, and calls the onRatingChanged event with an info about the rating value. Refresh stars goes over all the stars in a row, gets the current value, and subtracts I. This is necessary because each star represents a 1-point range in a scale. Star 0 covers 0 to 1, star 1 covers 1 to 2, and so on. It then evaluates the state, setting it to either empty, half, or full, based on its start value. It then calls for the star to update its visuals. Evaluate state takes the value, defaults to empty, and then checks if the value is above 1, in which case it is returning full, or if it is half or more than half of the value. In this case, the check is a little bit more layered. It first checks if we are going for a half or full value type, meaning if we want to have half stars or only full stars. If we are going for half stars, it will return the half star display value, and otherwise it returns the full state. Enjoyed the tutorial so far? please give it a like and consider subscribing for more Unity UI video tutorials. Okay, continuing. GetRatingValue is a bit of a helper for the two following methods. It takes an index and a star side. First, it checks if it is the left side or not and stores the result. Then it checks if what was provided is a left side and if we set our value to half. If either of those is false, the whole value will be false. Context value then gets set based on the result of the previous check. It returns the index plus context value. This goes back to each star giving a range of values. OnStarClicked is the method that is being used to set up the click receiver script. It gets the new rating when the player clicks on a star, and if the player clicks on the same value twice, it will set the rating back to 0. It then calls setRating for the new value. OnStarHovered gets the hover value first, by checking if the index is larger than 0, in which case it will be set to 0. And otherwise, getting the current rating value for where the player is hovering. It then goes over all the stars in the system and sets their hover state in a way that is similar to what we did before. Lastly, an onPointerExit method, make sure to add the iPointerExit interface at the top for this to work, will make sure that any indicators get cleared when the player hovers away from the container. Save everything, then head back to the editor. Let's start with the star. Open the prefab and attach the click and hover receivers to both sides of it. Then add the star script and fill out all the required references. That done, go back to the star rating container and attach the star rating script. It will automatically fill out the stars and there is nothing else for us to do here. Enter play mode and give the system a test. At this point everything is working, or at least should be working. If some events don't seem to be called, make sure you edit the interfaces at the top of your scripts. As a last bit of polish, I'll add a bit of squash and stretch to the stars. For this, I'll take the script I wrote in the corresponding tutorial and add a two-liner. The iPointerClick handler interface at the top, then inside its method, just call for the squash and stretch method to play. This script gets attached to both sides of the star and will pulse the star container slightly. Save, head to play mode, and the system now looks a bit more complete as well. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, a thumbs up and maybe a comment would be very much appreciated. Have a great week!